I can't see you. Welcome to Podcast PD. Podcasts are the great anytime, anywhere way to learn, laugh, think, and grow. We are talking about the power of podcasts and podcasting for professional and personal development for educators. We answer your questions and collaborate on how podcasts can make a positive impact in your life and in your classroom. With me tonight, we have Mr. Nessie of the House of Ed Tech. Say hi, Chris.
Hey, everybody.
And we have AJ Bianco.
Hello, everybody.
And we have John Otterstedt.
Hello.
You just started your own podcast, right?
I did, just a couple weeks ago.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. So this is Podcast PD for Sunday, November 22nd, 2015. Great job on the intro, Stacy.
Thanks.
It's always a pleasure to hear your voice.
Oh, that's sweet.
So I guess we could start with a recap of what we did yesterday, which was attend a very awesome Ed conference, Ed Camp, New Jersey, which was at Springfield, New Jersey at Jonathan Dayton High School.
Up in Union County.
Up in Union County. Might as well have been Canada for you, Stacy.
It was over an hour away. I didn't realize New Jersey was that big.
So let's throw him right into the fire and get him going here. John Otterstedt. What'd you think of Ed Camp, New Jersey?
Yeah, I liked walking by you guys over there because you were at the cool kids table over in the corner over there. And I was in the back sitting on the ground eating pizza out of a box during lunch. So
on the ground?
Yeah, unfortunately we got let out from our last session too late. So I made my way over by you, and there was a different change in the air when I made my way over in your area.
At least you got pizza.
I know, that's true.
Sometimes you don't get the pizza and you don't get a seat.
Yeah, the one guy next to me stole the entire box.
I was to say, I think we had 3 boxes at our table at one point.
Well, I think the one guy
that's why you were the cool kids table.
Oh, no.
AJ, how was your Ed Camp, New Jersey experience?
It was a great experience. I absolutely enjoy going to those things, get rejuvenated and get some new ideas and just enjoy a day with people who I don't usually get to spend days with. It's a fantastic day, except for when you record a podcast and it doesn't work.
I blame it on the host.
I blame it on the host, too.
I was going to blame it on the microphone, but that's okay. We'll blame it on the host
If we blame it on the microphone, then we're blaming it on Billy.
Did you borrow Billy's mic? Is that what happened?
He has the same microphone as me, but I attempted to record and co-host the show, that latest episode of House of Ed Tech, and have Adam and AJ co-host it with me. And I was recording myself into my laptop, and I was recording the two of them on one mic. At least I thought I was recording them into Boss Jock Studio on my iPad. And then I was going to put the two audio files together. Much to my surprise, when I got home, there was no audio in their side of the conversation.
You were talking to yourself again.
As I do most days. No.
I told you about that.
But their audio was picked up on my microphone, and I attempted to bring up the levels and make it sound good, and it sounded like crap, and I just wasn't about to release crap. So late last night, I re-recorded all that stuff minus them. I felt really bad because we did have a great conversation, and there was something that was missing from the episode. So we're just gonna have to make that work again another way somehow.
Exactly. Another
but
day.
You had LaVonna Roth and Ross Cooper fine. What was the difference?
Well, no, I didn't get. Ross Cooper was also, his audio was eliminated as well because he came in while I was talking with Adam and AJ.
Oh.
LaVonna was different because we shared my one microphone on my laptop, so we were passing the microphone back and forth.
Oh, were you actually sliding it across the table? I was wondering.
I was holding it like a TV thing, so I would pass it to her. She passed it back. So that's why that worked much better.
Yeah. The whole day was great. Your whole podcast about recapping the day was also really awesome. And I can't wait till next week to hear, or 2 weeks, right? To hear Natalie.
Yes.
Natalie Kranberger. Hi, friend.
What I liked about that was, again, using Boss Jock Studio, going out, because I was able to connect my microphone to the iPad. So I had the high quality sound and kind of do like that man on the street setup where I was able to just go and talk to people.
Right. That was pretty cool too. The man on the street. Listening to Meredith and who else? Oh, Jill. Okay, so this is going to sound really bad, but Jill sat with us, right? And I didn't realize who she was. I wish I had listened to 2 weeks ago prior to this morning, because then I would have, like, the light bulb would have, like, been on.
That's okay.
Because you failed to make introductions.
No, I introduced and I failed to introduce you, but I did like Jill, AJ, Jill, that whole kind of thing.
Okay.
Because he was there early and all that.
He was there early. You just go read the name tag.
I don't even think I saw a name tag. And if anybody was looking for mine, it was on the bottom of my shirt.
Stacy made my name tag.
Shut it.
Yes, super man.
You were that man.
Man.
All right, so let's bring our guests into this.
I was going to say, John, tell us about your podcast and how long you've been doing it and what brought you into podcasting.
All right. I've been online doing different things for a long time now, but mainly in the sports realm. And considering I'm a teacher, I've always wanted to do something online in the teaching world, but I've just been kind of waiting for inspiration to hit me. And I guess about 3 months ago, I got really into the Tim Ferriss podcast. Do y'all listen to that?
No.
If you don't listen to it, you have to listen to it. So it's not education related, but what Tim does is he interviews people who are successful in all walks of life. He interviews actors, business people, anything you can think of, artists, and they're all unbelievable people. And he just kind of digs into them and just kind of finds out what their keys to success are. And he'll do it for 45 minutes to an hour, and it's just fascinating to listen to. He's the author of the 4-Hour Work Week.
That guy.
Yeah, he's huge. He's got a huge following online, Twitter, Facebook, everything. And as I kept listening to it, I kept hoping he'd ask questions about education. He sometimes would get to it, but right when he get to it, he'd turn off and go on to something else. And so I just kind of found I had that little itch there. I said, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to just try to get the smartest people I can find on the phone, interview them, and talk a little bit about what made them, successful, but then always turn it back to education. Because, I'm just getting really down about district initiatives. AJ actually used to work in my school district, and it's a great, great place, but there's a lot of things that coming down from above that are, a little bit scripted. And I just feel that you have to, perhaps the best way to inform our teaching is just to look at people who are successful or doing really cool things in the world and say, how do we produce more people like you? And that's kind of the question I ask about 2/3 of the way through every podcast is, if I want to someday look back and say, hey, I produced someone just like you, what do I have to do in my classroom? How do we have to change? What courses do we have to offer in our schools? How do we have to interact with students differently? And that's pretty much what I do. So I've done 5 episodes so far, and I have 7 other people lined up, and I'm just going to keep going until I find the answers to the questions that I have for myself.
That's cool.
Now, John, as a relatively new podcaster, 5 episodes, there are a lot of people who often, and during the time that we've been doing this chat, have asked, how do you start a podcast? What equipment do you use? What's the setup? So as a newer podcaster, first, what finally clicked for you to create? And then we'll get into what you use to create. But
so what made me want to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was just really Tim Ferriss. He is so inspirational when you listen to him. You want to be friends with the guy. You want to hang out with him. You want to meet the people who he's interviewing. And that's what inspired me to do it. I just said, not that saying I could do it as well as him, but I could do an education version of what he's doing. And so I figure, like anything I do in life, I'm the kind of person who I say I'm going to do something and then I start doing it immediately thereafter without much forethought into how to do it. And that's what I've been doing the past 5 weeks with the podcast, because I literally had no experience doing it, but I'm pretty good with technology on, I guess, a basic level. And And I just knew if I recorded it, I could throw video up there and figure out how to make it sound better later. So I have 5 episodes. All 5 episodes have been recorded different ways. And I still haven't found the right way to do it, which is, Chris, why I found you over at lunch yesterday, because I just wanted to pick your brain in between slices of pizza to find out what you do or how you do it. And if it requires me getting a microphone like you have there and those cool headphones, I'm going to get them. I'm going to do whatever I can, because they sound okay now, but we have a lot of room for improvement.
My thought is with that, it's not, what you have or the gear or the quote, the right way. It's just like best practices. I could say, okay, buy this microphone that I have, but you may get it and it may not work for your voice. So, I mean, you just try, you do what you're doing, you experiment. Right. I made the joke that I was half serious yesterday. I've done 49 episodes and I apologize for the first 48 because, I'm always learning something new. And as you continue to create your content, you're going to continue to learn new things as well and find new tools and ways to tweak.
Right. There's so much stuff online right now that it's making my head explode. But even today, getting back to Tim Ferriss, he did an interview in one of his episodes with someone who's, is it This American Life? Is that the name of the really big podcast from NPR?
Yes.
Yeah.
But, the gentleman who started that or who works on that, and he's started 2 other podcasts since then that are at the top of the charts. And I'm listening to that one like at the edge of my seat because he's so full of information. And what's cool about what he was talking about was not just the technical end of it, but going through it almost as a producer and as a writer, because he has a background in content. And because when they asked him, why are you famous? Why are you at the top of the charts? Why have you been able to bring 3 different podcasts to the top? He didn't talk about what microphone he had. He didn't talk about what, how he recorded his stuff. He talked about, writing the storyline that goes about in the background of his podcast. He talked about making tough decisions about what to cut out. And that's something that I haven't done yet. Of course, he has the benefit that he has an entire team of people working on this. He has producers and assistants and
research people.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I can't. I knew you could make some money perhaps on a podcast. Not that I'm going into it with that goal, but I didn't realize that this is like a big industry for someone like this guy.
Absolutely.
Now, John, did we ask you the title of your podcast at the beginning?
Oh, yeah, it's called Cultivating Greatness, and it's cultivatinggreatness.org. And if you find me on Twitter over there, I think on this screen, yep, it's my Twitter address is there, and I have the address of the website right there.
Awesome.
So, John, I really like the name of your podcast. What inspired you to name it Cultivating Greatness?
I was trying to think of just, once again, as I kept listening to all of Tim's podcasts, I kept saying, how do these guys become who they are? And that's what he's doing. And I think we're in the trenches as teachers, and we're the ones that's cultivating those seeds and trying to bring people to reach their dreams, their goals, or whatever. And, I had about 20 names, and finally that one hit me, and I went for it.
Now, what caught my eye about your podcast was your first episode. You want to tell everybody?
It was Eric LeGrand one.
You had for your first episode.
Yeah, Eric LeGrand. In fact, that might be my worst sound quality one, but maybe my favorite one, just because of who it is. Eric is the Rutgers football player who was in the he had a horrible accident on the field against Army in 2010 that left him unable to move from the neck down. And you might think that would be the last time you'd hear from Eric, but since then he's graduated from Rutgers. He's become a motivational speaker, which is unbelievable. He started a foundation that raises money for spinal cord injuries. And he also is all over the place as an announcer on college sports radio. He does some things for Rutgers. He does other things. Basically, when you turn on TV, you're always seeing the guy. And so when I had to pick my first person to interview, it was either him or Katie Myler, who's my second person, who I think she might be the most animated and interesting interview I did thus far, because I felt a little more comfortable doing that one. But Eric is just, he's what I'm looking for with the podcast. I want to find people like Eric and go, how do we create somebody like you who, despite challenges and things that's going on in life, can bounce back from it and still do bigger things than most of us who are able-bodied or, have more options in front of us are doing. So he was a great one. I'm so happy to have him.
Yeah, that's one everybody should be listening to. He's an inspirational guy, no matter, on or off the field, whatever the case may be. He's fantastic.
Yeah. The
He's
second
fantastic.
one was Katie Myler. She started an organization called More Than Me, and that's out in Africa, in Liberia, and she works with. She started a school for girls because in that country there aren't many opportunities for girls. And if you take a look at Katie, she's this beautiful young woman, and kind of like, I don't mean to be stereotypical, but kind of like the last person you'd expect to leave everything behind. She had a great life here in New Jersey, an upper middle class, actually, or an upper class town, if I believe. And she's really put a lot on the line to do some incredible things over there. And when you hear her interview, it's like you just want to get up and go out and do the same things that she's been doing. So I'm definitely looking for more people like that to interview, because I'm interested in the successful business people and people who've made money. But by the same token, it's like someone like her who's doing big things in life without receiving money and just like finds other rewards. That's what I'd really love to do. I'd like to pursue that more.
John, another question. Since you've started your podcast, being that you're also an educator, how has becoming a podcaster now impacted your teaching?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, I think it's just in the last. So I started thinking about this about a month and a half ago, and I think it's been my best month and a half of teaching in a while, primarily because of I'm excited about something. And I'm on Twitter all the time now. I hadn't been big on Twitter in the past. I've been on other social network sites, but not Twitter. And at first it was very confusing to me because you're limited by characters and the whole hashtag thing confused me. But now that I'm on there all the time, I see all these great things that are posted by other people, and I'm constantly going back, oh, I have to try this. I have to try that. I have to try this. It's almost overwhelming because I think I sent my principal an email at 3:00 in the morning last night because I couldn't sleep because of something. One of my kids were sick, and I'm sending him a message going, I think with basically my whole recap from Ed Camp. I wouldn't have been at Ed Camp if I wasn't doing the podcast. And I wouldn't have been emailing my principal at 3:00 in the morning if it wasn't for the podcast. And, and I wouldn't be here right now. So for me, it's been a big thing. In fact, I'm just trying to think of right now how I can encourage people who I work with. They don't have to take an interest in podcasting. They don't have to take an interest in Twitter like I have right now, but I want them to take an interest in something. And I think everybody does have an interest in something, but I think an interest in something that you can share with other people. Because I think once you decide to take it to a broader audience, I think it changes you and it changes the people you talk to. And that was the content of my email last night to my principal is how do we better use our faculty meetings so that all these cool things that are going on in our school gets brought to a wider audience, not just in our school, but maybe beyond our school.
Yeah, that's so true. When you find the interest and you share it, even with students, it becomes a new classroom, it becomes new lessons, everything becomes different. And students really get excited when they can share their passion and kind of connect a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's interesting how passions really open up other people's, it opens up your world. It's just as you explore different things.
And, with this podcast, I'm talking to people who are really successful. And even like I only have 5 episodes right now, but I've talked to a lot more trying to set up interviews. And so when you talk to people who are successful, it just changes you in some way. And it makes you want to do something bigger. And I think also just looking online, I see people who are excited about teaching when I'm in my school. But I mean, like anything else, that people are hot or cold on any given day or any given week or depending on the time of the year. But when you're on Twitter and you're looking around, I mean, there are people who are on about stuff 24 hours a day. And I mean, you can't help but be excited about that, motivated by that.
That's cool. Tell us a little bit about your process, John. So you said you've done all 5 episodes completely differently. Walk us through, you sit and record on what day? What does it look like when you actually, do you have do you have notes? Do you read from a script? Do you have bullets?
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, every single one is done differently, but I remember listening to Tim Ferriss talk about how he does it and that he sends people questions beforehand so they're not caught off guard. So day 1, that's what I did. I wrote up generic questions and I emailed them out to the people who said that they joined me. And I said, send me anything that you'd like to talk about so that I make sure that I hit those topics too. And in fact, I think I need to be a little bit better about that in the future. And every interview, like I said, it's only been 5, but I've done a mix of live. Live, I have a handheld recorder with lavalier mics. One time that didn't work. Thank God I had a phone recording in the background. I've done another one with the phone. I've done several with Google Voice. If you listen to one of my podcasts and it sounds like there's robots talking, that's my Google Voice ones. And so it's really just been an adventure just trying to figure out what works at this point. But, the process just is really at this point, I'm just trying to reach out to a lot of people, try to sell them on the vision for what I'm doing. It's hard when you're doing an educational podcast. It's very easy to say, hey, I'm doing a balanced literacy podcast. I'm doing an ed tech podcast. It's a lot more difficult when you're saying, well, I'm interviewing successful people talking about their life story, but then trying to pull it back to education so we can learn from their life experience. It doesn't, you can't spit it. At least I can't yet. I don't have the elevator pitch down well. So I've been practicing that. But I think it's working because I got a CEO of a company, hopefully coming on, of a major company, coming on soon. And I don't know, that's pretty much it. I don't know if you want me to dig further into how cool. But that's the basic process I've been going through.
Well, how is your experience? How have you felt so far now that we've been throwing questions at you and there was no preparation?
I know. I think I'm more sensitive to the people who I'm interviewing now because it's stressful when someone's asking you questions about, how you view things in life and how you do the things that you do, even if you can express that to your family or friends in an informal capacity. When you have people, well, in this case, staring back at me on this lab website, it is stressful. So, which I think makes it all the more important that I prep the people beforehand.
Well, don't feel bad. There are some days I look in the mirror and can't answer questions to myself.
I will admit, though, the times that I've been interviewed, it is nice to have the questions ahead of time. So I apologize for not having the questions.
This is fun. I think first of all, I have to hand it to you guys for experimenting with new things. This is the first time you've used the Blab website? Or?
No, this is... Chris, how many times have you
5 or 6?
do this?
Oh, okay. I thought you were new with it, but I was going to say because you look like you're seasoned professionals with it, so it's awesome. This is a really neat forum.
Yeah, I think Chris has stock in the company. That's why I keep using it.
I wish. No, it's a great platform. I mean, you figure. I mean, just looking at the top of the screen, we've got 29 people who have watched it, 91 people who have been in here. I don't know if we've ever had this much engagement in a regular Twitter chat.
No.
Yeah.
I attribute that to John.
I bring a large posse with me.
That's different this week.
Yeah.
Back the numbers.
You do.
Yeah, I wish I could claim that. I'm not sure what's going on.
But you figure you have people coming in. We have a great chat room going tonight. There's been a lot of great comments, a lot of questions. People can ask additional questions by using / and lowercase q, and those will bring questions up for us on the left-hand side that we can ask. So if you got a question for John, myself, AJ, or Stacy, that's the way to get questions to us. Tell them a little bird, engaging people out on Twitter, bringing the audience in. It's a great platform to do that. Plus, it's recording us, and within 5 minutes of us being done here, I will have an email that lets me download the video and download the MP3 audio at a high quality.
All right.
Which I will then push out as Podcast PD, the podcast.
So, John, I think the big thing now from your experience podcasting, are you going to bring it to the classroom? Are you going to have your students create podcasts, or are you going to use it anyway like that?
That's a good question. We have a Chromebook cart in the classroom. So I teach 3rd grade. And last year we did some video, and we've done a lot of things with Google products, presentations, and things like that. So in fact, this year we've done a few projects with video. I have little Kodak cameras that we film with. So, I mean, this is a natural extension, so I'd love to do it. And I also love just to do some things where I'm talking to more teachers on the podcast, maybe people I work with who inspire me, but others out there in the world, not just kind of, I've shot high with some of the emails down there. All right. And, but yeah, I think, what a great way for kids to express what they're working on with, in this audio realm with the podcasting and things. I think the parents would enjoy it. It's easy to share. You can email the podcast to them if you don't post it online somewhere.
Yeah.
So as I was saying earlier, the more I've delved into this, I've only been getting maybe 50 listeners at most for most of my podcasts. So I can't say I'm out there changing the world in that. The person who's changed the most through this whole process, and it's only been a few weeks, is myself. Because if you walk into my classroom right now, I'm not gonna say it's always been a cool place. It's been an awesome place to hang out, but I've had a different energy about me, because I think everything I've done lately is inspired by things that I've seen on Twitter, that I've heard in other podcasts, the things that I've seen in videos. And I don't even know, like Edutopia. I've seen that website in the past, but now when you're hanging out on Twitter, that's all people are linking back to. And so I've met people through there, people who've written articles, who've been written about on that website. And I've taken out books that I've seen on that website, or I've had recommended to me on Twitter, or by people who have found the podcast. So the net benefit is completely mine right now. And if I can kind of turn that back and even more towards my students, or more towards, the people out there who are listening, and maybe more people can listen, I could, inspire them in some way. I don't know. I'm just happy. And I'm happy to be here with you guys.
We're glad you're here with us. What grade
I
do
said
you
it before,
teach,
but I
John? We
teach
didn't really
third
get into
grade,
that,
and
did
I've
we?
taught 4th, 5th, and 7th. And I looped 3rd to 4th and 4th to 5th a bunch of times. So I like to bounce around, but 3rd grade's my favorite.
Yeah, I like 3rd grade when I taught 3rd grade too. That was good. So how do you envision
That's
this
a good
working with
question.
your
I haven't
3rd
given it
graders?
too much thought yet. But the best part about it is that we have the Chromebooks right now. So really, and the kids are better as you all know, you hand the kids a piece of technology and you say, my one friend who teaches across town, I don't know if it's the best phrase, but I understand what he's saying. He hands the kids something new and he says, break it. And I understand that, because the kids, if you give them full range and they're not really scared that they're going to do something wrong, like, destroy the network or destroy the computer, they will find more features in it than you could ever have found yourself. And it travels like a virus across the classroom. The first time this year, I showed them how to use Google Slides. They were doing things that I didn't even know existed in it, and I felt like I could have started my own blog or podcast on Google Slides after the first week, just from things that I learned from 8-year-olds. So we'll try some of this.
It's amazing with those
we'll continue
8-year-olds
to do.
will teach us.
They love video, and that's the big thing we've been playing with right now. I started just 2 weeks ago. Every math lesson we do, I let them reteach it on video, and so that they can. So next year's class can learn from them, or if there's somebody who's having trouble, I can have them go back on the Chromebooks and see one of their fellow students who's taught it. And so they're all excited about that right now. Every time I teach them any skill, they're dying to be the person who gets to go and set up the computer and the video camera and teach it. And in fact, to the point where my desk, which has been I have a desk in my classroom that's like the size of a king-size bed. And it's like the oldest metal it's like a car sitting in my classroom. And my principal and I this week, we're going to pull it out, and that corner of the room is going to become a studio. And so I'm going to have a permanent camera set up, lavalier mics, all that kind of stuff. And, whatever we're teaching, I'm going to find out. It's going to be like my option in the corner. Make a video. If you want to, science, social studies, whatever it is, I think it's going to be pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Another classroom in America where kids will want to get sent to
I know, right? I got them all pumped up because I showed them a video I made last year. If you go on YouTube and you look up rocks and minerals and then my last name, Otterstedt, it should come up. It was a goofy video that the kids and I came up with just at a spur of the moment. And it's like a Bill Nye the Science Guy video about rocks and minerals. And, the kids who saw it this year, they've already started writing scripts and thinking about things they can do. A couple of years ago, we made a water cycle video to a Kesha song. I think if you go on YouTube and you look up water cycle, Kesha, we did. I think it's got like 30,000 views or something like that, and which was kind of a neat lesson for the kids. And I kind of relate this to the whole podcast thing too, because there's someone out there who if you produce something and just keep it to yourself, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't help anyone else. It might help you. It might bring some joy to you. But if you take something, you put it out there, you put it on YouTube, you put it somewhere else, and you take it to a broader audience, it can grow some wings and do some great things out there. And so I love to, show the kids that video because it has thousands and thousands of views, and let them know that, look, when you learn something and you share it with other people, you're making a difference.
I just linked to the video in the chat here on the web.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a link to your YouTube channel so people can see all the awesome things.
I have like 4 YouTube channels, so every video I make is somewhere else. I think each one only has one good video in it, but and then a lot of stuff we hide on Vimeo because parents don't want all the videos out there. So
I shouldn't have shared them. No.
No, if you find something that's good, like the water cycle and the rocks one, by all means share it. Just some of the other ones I never got permission from the parents to put out there, so I keep them on Vimeo.
Oh, okay. I didn't find your Vimeo channel, so I guess that's good.
Hey, Chris, all of a sudden I can't see your picture.
I'm right here.
Oh.
Hey.
I can
You
hear
sound
you.
a little robotic today.
Yeah, I just don't
Yeah, it's a
see
little
you.
static.
There's some static on your microphone.
I'm going to...
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, he's gone.
AJ, you are in Chris's square.
I
Yeah, it's
am,
really
right?
strange.
noticed
I'm in
that.
AJ's spot.
So, John, we haven't really talked. I don't know if Stacey has mentioned anything, but Stacey actually created a grant to use podcasting in her school.
Oh, awesome.
So, whenever you have questions, if you want to connect, Stacey is your go-to.
No, I have
That's
zero
what Chris and I
equipment.
were kind
I
of-
wrote this grant and I have zero equipment yet because I still don't know how to get it.
But still, you will become the guru, and you will be the one.
I will
leads the way.
I will take on that charge. But unlike John, who apparently is a go-getter, I have been dragging my feet this year. There are just so many initiatives that we got started with this year that podcasting is unfortunately taking a back burner. My goal was October 31st. That clearly did not come to fruition. So my new goal is when we come back from the winter holiday.
And what is your role in the school?
I am my official title is Teacher Resource Specialist for Technology, which is a really trumped up title to say that I am a tech integrator / coach.
Mm.
So I work with teachers on designing and creating sound instruction that involves technology.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Yeah, so hopefully I will reach out to I'll get my ed fund to get all of that stuff in and going. But I work in a 4-5 school, and then prior to that I taught 3rd and 1st grade. And way before that, 2nd grade. So I like those little kids that you work with all the time.
I think it's neat because I have children. My own children are in 5th, 9th, and 10th grade. And I think if you start the kids little by giving them the laptops and the equipment and saying, go run with it, they're way better off. I mean, that's common sense, but I think if I were to give a piece of technology to my 3rd grader and give one to my 9th grader, the 3rd grader is going to pick it up quickly because they just naturally, they're not afraid to break it. They're not afraid, and they just run with it, which is it's a neat part of teaching, at that level.
I agree with you.
Cool. No matter what you show them, it's the coolest thing ever.
It's the coolest thing ever. My 3rd grader made his Christmas list using Google Slides this year and shared it with me. And then my husband said that's not going to work, so he changed it to a Google Doc. And that has now been shared with me.
One of my students last year after I taught her how to use Google Slides, she made a Google Slide presentation highlighting all the reasons why she should be allowed to get a dog. Her mom called me up. She goes, really, you're really making it very difficult for us this Christmas season because every time I turn around, my kids are sending me Google Slides presentations of what they want.
It's fantastic.
And then here's the crazy thing, and I know we're supposed to be talking about podcasts, but I just love this whole realm of technology anyway. About 20 minutes ago, I received a, when they share with you within Google Classroom and you can receive the updates in your email. I had this one girl every weekend. She's making her own Google Slides presentations and Google Docs on different things. Today, she did her own Batman story and she was putting things in that presentation that I never even taught her how to do. Then the week before, she did an entire thing on the Lenape Indians, and it's a continuous thing. And, I think because they view it like Legos. You send the kids home with Legos, and they're going to go home and play with it. And if you give them some skills like we're all doing with the technology, they take it and they run with it.
And
That's
these are
fantastic.
unprompted presentations.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And it was pages long. You know,
I love it. Did you
here,
have
I'm
good
gonna go and
stuff
I
about
can read
Batman?
I saw it on my phone before. I didn't have a chance to look through the whole thing. But I mean, and she's not the only one doing it. Like every weekend, I'll receive 2 or 3 things that, you know, mentions in my email that kids have created something or they've worked on something, they've edited something, and, you know, completely unprompted, and they just want to do it. And then when they get to school in the morning, when they have that 5 minutes in the beginning, they go grab their laptops and they're showing each other what they made.
That's what it should be about. That's what it should be about. Now, are you 1-to-1 or I think you said you were.
Is it just me in the classroom?
No, are you 1-to-1?
Oh, yes. Yes. So we received the cart last year, and that was like Christmas in September.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you say we slide into our podcast recommendations for this week?
Sounds good.
Cool. So, John, we're going to put you on the spot once again.
All right.
Where recommend a podcast that people should check out. That, yeah, it's that simple.
I mentioned it before, and I'm going to say it again, just because I think if you like the idea of what I've been talking about in terms of my, you know, what I'm doing with my podcast, I'm like a neophyte compared to this one. Tim Ferriss just does it right. He's, like I said before, he's the author of the 4-Hour Workweek. He has friends in high places. I mean, just last week he interviewed Kevin Costner, and he asks questions that you wouldn't expect people to ask. And he just really digs into why they're successful. And if you're a teacher and you're listening to it, you can make those connections back to what you should be doing in the classroom if you want to create the next Kevin Costner or, whoever. So it's the first thing the best thing about it, I got into it after he had already had about 80 episodes. So even though he only posts one a week, I have enough to carry me through for a long, long time listening to one a day.
Now, I'm going to ask, this is the Stacy question when it comes to subscribing to a new podcast that's established. You're going to go back and listen to every single one in order, or are you going to jump around?
No, I jump around.
I can't do it.
That's my method.
I can't do it. So is his podcast just titled Tim Ferriss?
Yeah, if you look up Tim Ferriss, it's on his 4-Hour Workweek website.
Okay.
But I mean, it's easy to find. It's all over.
It's also featured in iTunes like every other week.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get out of
good.
my iTunes iPod catcher, or podcast catcher.
The only thing you have to do is you have to fast forward through the first 4 minutes because it's nonstop commercials until he finally starts digging into what he's doing.
Oh, that's painful.
Yeah.
Thank God for smart speed.
Yep.
AJ,
Hi.
what's your recommendation this week?
My recommendation, I do not have anything that is brand new on my iPod catcher, iTunes, podcast catcher, but I've been listening to, principally speaking, catching up on a lot of his episodes. And currently in the middle of his episode with Glenn Robbins, middle school principal in New Jersey, and listening to Glenn's passion, the things that go on in his school is just, it's fascinating. You can just listen to him forever.
I won't spoil it. I listened to that episode on Friday. It's a solid episode, and Jason does a nice job in general.
Yes.
Cool. I'll have to check that out too. How many episodes are in that podcast? Because I'm starting.
He's in,
Principally speaking.
Yeah.
principally speaking, high 40s, AJ.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I can binge on that over a Christmas break.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He doesn't have. They go quickly too, so you can listen to him and you're like, "Oh, that's it. He's over."
And he also gets he's got a nice sponsorship deal with Corwin, so he's been able to have a lot of the different authors from Corwin on. So good, solid content. And
I promise you, the guests that he has on Principally Speaking, every one of them, you go, "Oh wow, he's got this guy or this woman or this educator, this principal," and you're like, "Okay." Yeah, I'm just looking through his last. Like I said, I'm trying to catch up. 6 people in a row. You're like, wow, I have to listen to this one. Wow, that's a good one. This one too. So yeah.
And what's the average length, AJ? Because you know the length of a podcast.
It's like, yeah, I know. It's between 40-45 minutes.
Okay. I only ask because I'm looking at some of these Tim Ferriss ones, and I'm like an hour and 51 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of time on the treadmill.
Oh, I couldn't even. Oh.
But as I've shared, Stacey, there's no such thing as too long, only too boring.
I know you
So
say
if it's
that,
good, engaging
but if I'm
content,
listening to 2 hours of one person's podcast, that's 2 hours of somebody else's podcast that I am not enjoying.
time shifted. Listen when you can.
I'm trying.
You do a good job.
I know.
And I'm gonna go. I'll go next, and then we'll save Stacey for last.
Good. I can put you to sleep with my podcast recommendation this week.
So this one I'm going to recommend, and I think it's convenient that we have John here. And no, I'm not recommending yours, John, because you got to talk about it. But as a podcaster like myself and like AJ and Stacey, I guess you guys are podcasters now, so it works.
If you say so.
I do say so.
I'm still the guest on your show, really.
Whatever. All right, so here's my recommendation. I'm going to recommend The Feed, the official Libsyn podcast, which can be found at thefeed.libsyn.com/podcast, and that's hosted by Rob Walsh and Elsie Escobar. And it's a podcast sponsored by Libsyn, which is where you can host your podcast, and they give out podcasting tips, recommendations, and it is a podcast that gives you not nitty-gritty, deep how-to podcast, but they're sharing best practices, and it's community-based, so they're always promoting other podcasts and podcasters, which is a good thing. So that's my recommendation for this week.
Fantastic. And so I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I really do like this podcast. My recommendation came from Derek Larson. I have to give like a little backstory to how I got into this podcast. So I started participating in the number 2 pencil chat with Sean Farnham, who is at Magic Vance Jones on Twitter. And
might be the greatest Twitter name ever.
I love it, right? It's pretty cool. Anyway, so number 2 pencil chat is all about can creating, and Derek B. Larson joined in late and then made the recommendation to Sean about the Pen Addict, which I know it's right. So Chris jokes that you can find a podcast about anything, and I literally have found a podcast about pens and paper, which being techie is almost like blasphemous, but I'm actually doing research for some PD in February about sketchnoting. So this is, I guess, if you'll indulge me, part of my PD. And the Pen Addict has a really nice back catalog of 180 plus podcast episodes, and I'm only on like episode 6. But I'm really enjoying it. I know Danny Kenneth said that she wasn't quite getting it because they were talking about field note notebooks, and then she went back to episode 1 and it was just a glossary of pen terms. But I totally geeked out, and I don't know. So I'm kind of blushing. I'm kind of embarrassed, but I'm really, really, really digging it. And I have to say it's really dangerous because I listen to my podcast in the car. So I have to be mindful that I'm not looking at my phone trying to Google the pens that he's talking about, because I just want to know what they look like and see if I use them.
Don't be embarrassed by that, because it's something you're interested in and you're passionate about. So
you should see my pen drawer. You should see my pen drawer. I geeked out when he said that he used the same pens that I'm currently using, although he's back in like 2012 and we are currently 3 years later, and he's probably not using those pens anymore.
Well, the ink's going to run out sometime.
He says he goes through a 6-month cycle, which I totally get. Like, I was addicted to the Sharpie pen. Now I'm addicted to the Acroball. You don't care, but I was just totally happy about this.
Sharpie pen, my grading pen of choice.
Right? See, so I moved
What
to
color,
this,
though, John? What color?
I like green, a nice subtle color. Don't like to jump right out there with the red. A little too harsh.
See, and that's the thing. Everybody has to write, and almost everybody has their pen of choice. So,
Nice.
Thanks for indulging me.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
And I wouldn't be doing it justice if I didn't say that our podcast recommendations are brought to you by the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more great education podcasts, be sure to check out edupodcastnetwork.com.
Fantastic. I nominate AJ to take us out of the show.
I'm being nominated for this right now? Really?
Yeah, because I want to know what you were laughing about, and I'm punishing you.
I'm watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You know this. Come on. Okay. What am I doing here?
Multitasker.
I do my best.
Just take us home, AJ.
All right. Thanks for checking out Podcast PD. Thank you to everyone who participated in tonight's conversation. We love your questions and enthusiasm. If you're interested in connecting with us, you can find me, AJ Bianco, on Twitter at AJ Bianco. That's AJ BIANCO. Or you can check out my blog at ajbianco.me. New post coming shortly. Chris?
I am Chris Nessie, host of the House of Ed Tech podcast over on chrisnessie.com. And you can connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Nessie, NESI.
And it's Daisy.
And I'm Stacey Lindis. I can be found on the Twitters at iRunTech. And my blog is iruntech.me. And I have a new post that I published on Monday. And I was actually writing my next post for tonight or tomorrow using my pen. And it will be up soon.
Awesome. And John, we'll throw it to you.
Wow, you're letting me close things out. Well, you can catch me at cultivatinggreatness.org. Only 5 podcasts in, but I hope to have many more, at least once a week coming up. I'd love to get any feedback I can. You can hit me up on Twitter at John Otterstedt. It's JohnOtterstedt. And guys, I just want to thank you so much. This was cool. I never have been on Blab before. Never been interviewed like this with 3 talking heads in opposite corners. And it was awesome. Thank you.
No, we appreciate you joining.